morning and thank you for joining us for another episode of Business PNG. Following the release of the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook and amidst doomsday predictions, is the economy really in a state of desperation? And what are the government's plans to alleviate this?
Early last week, the PNG government released the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook. The outlook showed that the budget deficit for 2015 was at 9.4% of GDP, or 4,817.4 million kina. Inflation is now projected to average around 4.9%, and the trade-weighted index moderated over the first half of 2015 reflects a weak performance of the kina against PNG's major trading currencies, showing that the fiscal outlook deteriorated in the first half of 2015. The report also showed that the effects of the developments in the global economy felt through declining commodity prices have translated into lower mineral and petroleum revenue outcomes in the first half of the year. Following the release of the report, PNG's think tank, the National Research Institute, asked the question, is the deteriorated state of the fiscal outlook a transient problem or a permanent problem? Stating that if it is the latter, serious restructuring and fundamental changes will need to be done to the economy.
So in terms of way forward for the government, if it's a transient problem, of course, bridging financing will be enough. If it is the later, then fundamental change in the economy. It is therefore critical for the Department of Treasury to be mindful that the real damage is being caused due to the alarmist reporting in the media, both locally and international, as a result of an alarmist media economic outlook. It will affect the exchange rate, it will affect investor confidence, it will affect businesses.
The release has also set alarms off in our southern neighbour Australia, with alarmist reports claiming that the fiscal figures were frightening and that the PNG economy is heading towards a Greek-style crisis. Paul Flanagan, a visiting fellow at the Development Policy Centre, wrote in an online article published on the blog last week that financing a deficit of 9% of GDP will be next to impossible, and that the government will have to look offshore for significant foreign borrowing. The Sydney Morning Herald ran a story later in the week stating that since the symbolically huge rivers of resource revenue have failed to materialize, PNG could either slash spending on crucial services, risking a humanitarian crisis, or seek a bailout from international partners. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, in response to the previously mentioned articles, had this to say in an exclusive interview with MTV.
Analyze where the critics are coming from. One of the leading critics is a research fellow in Canberra, a former staff of the Treasury who has been asked to leave Treasury in Papua New Guinea. You used to work under the former Treasurer, who is now the opposition leader, who is also one of the critics. One of the writers of the newspaper article in the Sydney Morning Herald is a gentleman called John Garno, who is the son of the former chairman of the PNG Sustainable Development Program, who we asked him to leave as well. So you can see the conflicts of interest when this is self-interested criticisms and, of course, critics making analysis of our economy.
He also said that the Central Bank of PNG released an analysis earlier this year that stated that the economy is stable and within range for the government to manage. The downfall is not unique to PNG. Economies around the world are facing the same dilemma, and that we're not there yet, but there is considerable improvement.
The recent publication by the Bank of Papua New Guinea clearly indicates to us that our economy is very stable. There is no need for anyone to talk down our economy. Our economy is now got inflation running at about 4%. Our foreign exchange reserves are at about 9 months cover. That's probably among the highest in many parts of the world. Many parts of the world, the import cover is only about 3 months. We have got 9 months. Our exchange rates are stable. Of course, our debt to GDP is very stable. Today, it runs at about 33% of the GDP, meaning that it is below the Financial Responsibilities Act of 35%. So it is still within the range of the ability of government to manage this debt.
Prime Minister warned critiques that there is a risk when talking down the economy as it affects investor confidence, which in turn affects the jobs of everyday Papua New Guineans. According to the Executive Director of the Institute of National Affairs, Paul Barker, there is no need to press the panic button. However, the country's current fiscal situation will need to be addressed by severe cuts in non-priority spending.
I don't think we should be too dramatic, but we really need to be prudent. There was no need for PNG to be getting into an awkward situation this year. The key thing has to be that PNG has enough resources, has enough income to be able to provide decent basic infrastructure and quality services for the entire population, but it doesn't have the funds for extravagance, and it has to plan. You and I individually can choose to gamble on this, whether it's on the stock exchange or in the casino. It's not the government's job to gamble. The government, as with things like superannuation funds and landowner trust funds, these are really trustees. They're managing public money on behalf of the people, and it's really crucial that they manage those funds prudently to ensure that the core needs and services for the community. There is not enough money in PNG to be extravagant, but there is enough to honour the obligations that are in the Constitution to provide basic services and
Papua New Guinea belongs to the group of aviation network partners called the Association of the South Pacific Islands, or ASPA. As one of the founding members of this association, PNG continues to treasure its membership, and this year hosted the conference that ended on a high note in Kokopo, East New Britain Province. Papua New Guinea was awarded the chairmanship, with Air New Guinea Chief Executive Officer Simon Fu, now the chairman of the Association of South Pacific Airlines. We join our correspondent Fabian Hakalit, who speaks to George Fatafon, General Secretary for the Association of South Pacific Airlines. We'll continue with the way forward, with PNG now heading the chairmanship.
The Association of South Pacific Airlines, ASPA, was established at the directive of the South Pacific Civil Aviation Council in 1978. The first meeting of regional airlines, held in Suva in 1979, formally agreed to launch the Association of South Pacific Airlines, where the articles were adopted. ASPA is a trade association representing interests of member airlines and is operated on a not-for-profit basis. Main objectives are to promote cooperation among member airlines for the development of commercial aviation, to serve as a common forum for the articulation of members' views on matters and problems of common interest, to advise where appropriate the South Pacific Regional Civil Aviation Council through its advisory committee or any other regional or international bodies on any problems related to South Pacific aviation, to harmonize where possible given the different constraints of individual airlines, commercial, technical planning and administrative policies of members, so as to achieve progressively the following: standardization of airborne and ground equipment in the region compatible with demand patterns and airline economics, rationalization of schedules so as to achieve an optimum deployment of resources and improve the services to the public, joint marketing especially in tourist-generating centers so as to increase the South Pacific share of world tourism, cooperation in the areas of maintenance of equipment, training of personnel, provision of ground services, pooling mutually agreed resources and coordination of activities so as to achieve economies of scale and improve economic viability of air services in the region.
In the early 70s, there was an attempt to form a regional airline for the Pacific, and Fiji's national airline was to be the regional airline for the Pacific. It changed its name from Fiji Airways to Air Pacific in 1972, and it started operating into many Pacific islands. Fiji Airways, then Air Pacific, pioneered many of the regional routes. But as Pacific Islands gained independence, they felt that they needed to have some control over the air services, and rightly so, because air services was and still very vital for the development, economic development as well as social development within the islands. And also because of the small population bases that we have, there is very little outbound travel, and those countries that are tourism oriented, they bring tourists in and they take them out, but very little outbound traffic. And so the same thing applies within the region. And the whole objective of ASPA is to promote cooperation amongst the airlines, the national airlines, in developing commercial aviations within the region, to and from the region. And this is what we've been doing since 1979. I wasn't there in 1979, but Simon was there. Papua New Guinea was a founding member of ASPA, and today they remain one of the strongest supporters of ASPA, and probably the largest Pacific carrier within the ASPA group, apart from Fiji Airways. We have 12 members, airlines, and then we have industry partners that come from all over the world. We have all the aircraft manufacturers in ASPA. We have 12 of the largest aircraft leasing companies. We have insurance broker, oil companies, as well as communications, aeronautical communication organizations in ASPA. We meet twice a year, and this is one of the twice yearly meetings that we just had in Kokopo. And the result of that meeting, Simon Fu has been elected chairman of ASPA, and his assistant is the CEO from Nauru Airlines, Jeff Bowmaker. And ASPA is managed by an executive committee that's made out of, apart from the chairman and the vice chairman, 5 executive committee members. And they are responsible for the policies and directions that they provide to the Secretariat. They provide guidance to the Secretariat. They approve the budget, and also they approve the work program, the annual work program for the Secretariat. And the last meeting we had in Kokopo was the 3rd time that we've met in Papua New Guinea. So there is really a need for ASPA to come out and promote itself. Apart from promoting cooperation among its members, ASPA also represents the airlines' interest to governments. And during our stay here in Papua New Guinea, we've had the opportunity to talk to some of the local airline industries, and we think that there is some opportunities we can work together with the local industry, and perhaps Simon can elaborate on that. But that's basically what ASPA does. It's a lobby group. It's a group that provides a forum where airlines can meet regularly and exchange ideas and discuss issues of common interest. And then we have the opportunity to network with our industry partners who also provide help and assistance to the regional airlines.
Full membership is accorded to airlines headquartered in the Pacific Island region, defined as the area bordered by Papua New Guinea to the west, French Polynesia to the east, Guam, the Northern Marianas to the north, and latitude 30 degrees south, excluding Australia and New Zealand. The Industry Service Providers Program was introduced in 1991 with the main objective to provide a forum for airline chief executive officers and service providers to meet and discuss issues of mutual interest. This has worked well over the years, with an increase of service providers from 2 in 1991 to 40 in 2014. This is a good sign of improving the inter-regional connectivity with the focus on training.
ASPA emerged from the Forum Secretariat, and then one of the first achievements was to have our own permanent secretariat. We moved from Suva to Nandi in 1988, and we have a permanent secretariat based at Nandi Airport, chosen because of its central location. As you know, most of our members operate into Nandi, but now with the improvement of intra-regional connectivity, you know, there are other centrally located cities in the Pacific that could also be a future potential home for the Secretariat if the members decide that they need to relocate the Secretariat. But the second most important was the training needs assessment that we carried out in the late 80s. As you know, that aviation is a very highly specialized area. You cannot hire people off the street and come straight and start operating. For instance, pilots and engineers, it takes years to train them. And then even when they are employed, they are still undergoing training. So it takes years for them to become real productive. And the same applies with the non-technical. So because there is not many training institutes that meet the needs of the airlines, we have to do that in-house ourselves. So the second most important achievement for ASPA was carrying out this training needs assessment back in the late 80s. And with the help of IATA, the International Air Transport Association, and the United Nations Development Program, we were able to access some funding to fund a regional training program, which we ran for 3 years. The UN provided us with seed funds of 1.5 million US, and we were able to train more than 800 people, local nationals of the Pacific Island Airlines. Training is still a major component of ASPA activities. We continued our training since then, and every year we run between 10 and 12 courses. And these courses vary from commercial, from safety, and some management programs that will help nationals of our airlines become proficient in carrying out their management responsibilities. We also carry out safety and security surveys in conjunction with IATA and ICAO to ensure that this region remains safe and secure, because many of us are depending more and more on tourism, and one of the essential requirements for tourism is safety. They want to go to places where they can feel comfortable. And talking about safety, I think it's important for me to mention that when we planned our conference at Papua New Guinea, there were a lot of reservations by many of our overseas delegates about the safety. There were a lot of concerns about safety. So I think the wise decision by the executive management of Air New Guinea to hold the conference at Kokopo, I think augurs well, because the moment the delegates arrived in Kokopo, I think an hour after that, the perception of safety completely changed. And I think when they left, many of them now view Papua New Guinea as a much safer place than the internet portrayed it to be. And I think there's something that Papua New Guinea as a country need to look at. Papua New Guinea is not Port Moresby alone. I think there are many safe areas. Kokopo is very competitive with any other tourism destinations in the Pacific. And I think from a tourism point of view, this is a message to the people and the government of Papua New Guinea that there is a lot of potential for tourism, places like Kokopo. And people have, many of our overseas delegates that have left have very good perception about Kokopo as a tourist destination, and also about the safety of the country. So I think that's a very good good image that Kokopo had portrayed to an international audience about the safety and the beauty of the country.
The recent appointment of chairmanship to Papua New Guinea in the Association of South Pacific Airlines is the platform as the leading economic powerhouse to the member countries and industry partners in the Pacific. Association of South Pacific Airlines General Secretary George Factaufon said that Papua New Guinea continues to play its role as one of the strongest supporters and largest national carriers in the South Pacific region, and for Port Moresby is the hub of the Pacific and Asia. The codeshare agreement is the way forward as part of the intra-regional connectivity within the Pacific.
Two very important reasons. First, for economies of scale, and secondly, that when you have two airlines cooperating on a particular route, you can then help to promote that route. There'll be more impact than just one airline doing on its own. So the tripartite agreement between New Guinea, Solomon Airlines and Air Vanuatu augurs well for what we are trying to do in ASPA. And I think, from my perspective, I think the more we see this type of arrangement, the better it is for the region. Because the three airlines are now going to be promoting that route, whereas if Air New Guinea had gone on its own, then the impact would not be as great. Because you have the national airline of Vanuatu is involved there, so they can do the promotion in Vanuatu, that route not only to Papua New Guinea and the Solomons, but also to Asia. The same thing happens in Solomons. Solomon Airlines can also promote Honiara Vila and Honiara Port Moresby, but also beyond Port Moresby. I think with the opening of this new facility at Port Moresby Airport will augur well for Port Moresby as a hub between the Pacific and in Asia. And I think Air New Guinea stands a very good platform there to provide that link that had been missing for a long time. Because many Pacific islands, if they wanted to go to Asia, they'd had to go through Australia. And the problem with that, at the same time, they need a visa. But coming through Port Moresby, they don't require a visa. So I'm personally very encouraged by this new initiative, and I hope that there will be similar type of initiatives coming in the future between other airlines also.
A good example is the tripartite agreement of Air New Guinea with other airlines in Melanesia under the Melanesian Spearhead Group agreement, like the recent one with Vanuatu and Solomon Islands. This ideal strengthens cooperation among member airlines, a good signpost for other countries in the Pacific to adopt because it improves the transport infrastructure network.
Because air transport is not just providing an air service, you need other facilities that would be easily available, like visa. Visa-free is very important for airlines. And we in Fiji Airways experienced the problem with getting nationals to go to visit in Australia, where visa is very difficult, not in Australia but New Zealand, US. So within the Melanesian Spearhead Group, granting visa-free and free movement amongst its national, I think it'll augur well for air transport, because then for the first time you don't have to worry about acquiring visas.
National flag carrier Air New Guinea Chief Executive Officer Simon Fu was recently appointed Chairman of the Association of South Pacific Airlines. In an exclusive, Mr. Fu said Papua New Guinea will continue to participate to support ideals of ASPA, to promote commercial agreements and interchange ideas, and continue to aspire to improve challenges faced in the aviation industry at the regional level.
Air New Guinea is a small carrier in world terms, but in the South Pacific we're a big player. And we would like to engage with our neighbouring countries to improve air services between their countries and ours, going through our excellent facility that has just been recently opened by the Prime Minister. So from a cooperation point of view, we have our own commercial agreements between airlines. Also, we can work as a forum to interchange ideas that we can improve ourselves on. One of the big beneficiaries of this is, from an Air New Guinea point of view, is that we now have a common insurance broker, and that provides a volume for all of the carriers to benefit from the scale. In addition to that, there's some excellent training programs which has been set by ASPA, and all countries in the Pacific, we're looking for training. And the excellent work put together by the ASPA Association has helped us improve the training of our people.
Regional issues concerning aviation will continue to be discussed. One of Air New Guinea's priority areas and focus is training.
And Papua New Guinea, and in Papua New Guinea, Air New Guinea has always taken the lead for 40 years. The training we've trained our own pilots, our own engineers, our own RAM staff, and because we want to meet world-class standard. We're in a world-class industry, and then we need to deliver to establish standards. And I think you will have seen that the training, we've got pilots from Papua New Guinea that are now working in the worldwide market, engineers that are working in the worldwide market. The employment force, the employers in the industry can move between the Pacific countries.
The Association of South Pacific Airlines General Secretary congratulated Mr. Fu for his appointment, as Air New Guinea has been a founding member.
And that's all we have for you tonight. For more business news, or if you would simply like to view this episode again, visit MTV online at www.mtv.com.pg, or to join the conversation, like our page on Facebook for daily business news, or follow us on Twitter at Business PNG using the hashtag Business PNG. Until next week, enjoy the rest of your viewing on MTV. I'm Leon Jarari, and this was Business PNG.